it. Before we get things started, I'd like to give a shout out to my producer and engineer of this whole shebang, Sauceboy, SOSSBOI. Make sure that y'all get at him on Instagram. And if you're an up-and-coming artist, no matter wherever you are in the world, make sure that you holler at him for some beats. Check out his IG, go ahead and hit him up on his email, and he will get at you, send you some stuff that you can work with. Now, Brock, like I said, you own Phillips Transportation Incorporated, and you're the founder of Interstate Hustler. So for those that may not know exactly what I'm talking about, go ahead and break down what it is that you do, you own, and oversee.
Okay, so I started a transportation company back in 2016, Phillips Transportation. So I'm a tractor trailer driver, so we pretty much, you know what I mean, haul goods. The tractor trailers you see going down the road, that's where we operate. Interstate Hustlers is like just a slogan of mine that I just made a company where it kind of really represents what we do.
And it makes sense.
I mean? Oh, yeah. Right. I've had that slogan now for like 7 years, you know what I mean? Like before the company started, you know, just still back in 2014, you know what I mean? First get my CDL, you know what I mean? It's like Interstate Hustlers.
How'd you come up with it? And before you answer, do me a favor, push your mic back just a little bit.
Okay.
Push them. Oh, like actually, like lift. Yeah. There you go, right there. Perfect.
Okay. So how I came up with it was one of my buddies of mine, he called himself the Interstate Hustler. You know what I mean? I said, man, Interstate Hustler. I said, that's pretty dope. You know what I'm saying? It represents what we do. So I pretty much got the idea from him. He actually has it tatted on him.
Nice.
Interstate Hustler.
Dedicated.
So I said, you know what? If I just put an S on it, right? Interstate Hustlers, and just kind of, you know what I mean, brought truckers together, you know, using that name, I think that would be pretty dope.
Yeah.
So back in the day, we started a Zello group. You remember Zello?
Zello?
Yeah, the walkie-talkie app. You never used it?
Oh, okay. No. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, the Zello. So when we used to work night shift, you know what I mean, we would always, you know, tune in the clock up, you know what I mean, on the Zello app, you know what I'm saying, get us through our shift, all the truck drivers. Because back then it was like all my homies worked night shifts, so we would always, you know.
Making sure that everyone was attentive.
Yeah, and just, you know, just goof off on the night. You know, your day go by so much faster. It's crazy.
For sure. So let me ask you, what sparked your interest in working with trucks to begin with?
So how that came about was I was working at an emission spot where we would, you know, you get your car tested for the emission, stuff like that. So at the time, you know, once I got out of school, you know, I knew that like the college thing just kind of wasn't for me. Yeah. So I said, you know what, man? I said, I gotta find something. So I took the sales route. I was doing sales jobs. You know, a lot of that, some of that stuff is, you know, think you're gonna make fast money. You know what I mean? So a lot of that stuff didn't work out. So when I worked the emissions job, I had already had that sales background. So I felt like it was nothing for me to, if I seen someone that looked successful, someone that looked like, you know what I mean, they had it going on, they were doing great things, it was nothing for me to ask them, hey man, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do? Yeah. And it was like almost everybody who I asked that to, you know, in that Baltimore area where I was working, everybody was truck drivers. Really? You know what I'm saying? They were they were truck drivers, they was owners of their companies, you know what I mean, some form or fashion, you know what I'm saying, we're doing something in trucking. I remember I met one cat, he was in the truck and he didn't even drive, he just owned dump trucks and he like rented his dump trucks out. It was crazy. Wow.
So that's what you just straight up, you know what I mean, like asked around and they told you. You're like, all right, well, shoot, let me see what's up with it then.
Right, absolutely.
So you got into the driving aspect first?
Yeah, so first, once I was talking to a lot of them, they would give me their cars. They say, hey, man, you know, once you get your CDL, give me a call. You know, I say, you know what, let me just go ahead and try to pursue this thing. I enjoy driving. Let me give it a shot. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I went to a school in Baltimore called Allstate Career. That was about a year long, and it was crazy, right? Because you technically need to be like, you can get your CDL before 21, but most companies won't touch you until you're 21. Yeah. Because once you're 21, you can go out of state. Okay. So I actually was in trucking school at the age of 20. So it was crazy because when I was in school, I mean, it's safe to say I still got a baby face, but back then I guess I really had a baby face because they would always ask me, like, they would single me out. They'd be like, who is that? You know what I mean? So ever since then, you know, I would always tell them, they would say, how old are you? I'd be like, I'm 20, but I'll be 21 by the time I graduate.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? So I started that way, and, because the program was so long, it worked out for me. Mm-hmm. Because if I would have graduated, there are a lot of shorter programs. So if I would have graduated any sooner, I would not have really, been able to do too much. Yeah. So I stuck it out, and ever since I left there, I was able to get on with a few different jobs, just trying to find my way. Yeah. And ended up spending the bulk of my driving career was at FedEx, hauling doubles. Okay. Yeah, so that's where I got most of my experience.
All right, so you start with the driving. Now, did something push you towards the CEO or ownership mindset, or did you already know that was something that you would, take part of down the road?
I definitely had no idea of, because I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. Okay. So, some people, it's like you come from a family of entrepreneurs, so it's kind of you're born into it. Yeah, it's like, you know what I mean? Down. You got kids nowadays that starting companies 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I had no idea. Yeah. I just got to the point where I feel like one thing about life, right? It's like you can't miss what you never had. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things that I didn't have, like great pay for what I was doing, benefits on the job, things like that. Yeah. I wasn't offered those things. So it came down to the point where I said, you know what, man, let me just hop out there. Plus, I did have because one thing about working with FedEx, because it was like a contractor position, mm-hmm. I worked with a lot of the guys that was doing it where they own their truck. So I would get a lot of, information from them. Mm-hmm. A lot of them were mentors to me. They seen my drive with trucking, and they would just, boost me up, just saying, hey, you should get out here and do your own thing. Yeah. Well, like when I first bought my truck, one of the reasons I bought like a white truck, it's crazy because all my whole fleet is white, but mm-hmm. When I first got into the game, my intentions was to work with FedEx. Really? So I was going to buy a truck so that I could eventually get my own contract.
The contractor thing.
You know what I mean? But it's crazy sometimes how life works because it didn't work out. Mm. But by it not working out, it was a blessing because I was able to go on and do bigger and better things than FedEx.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. That's great to hear, man. When one door closes, the other opens. That's awesome to hear. All right. So let me give you a quote. Okay. The dream is free. The hustle is The dream is free. The hustle is sold separately. End quote. Interstate Hustlers. Right? So what got you to really, you saw the vision, mm-hmm. right? You had the mindset or the dream, I guess you can call it. What got you to take initiative? You know what I mean? Because the door closed with FedEx, mm-hmm. and you're mapping out plans. Right. You got the plan for this one. Mm-hmm. Now, most people will be like, all right, sounds good. It may kind of be discouraged, maybe hesitant. Mm-hmm. What made you say, you know what? I'm going to straight go after the dream because anyone can dream it. Right. But let me go ahead and cash this in. What gave you the motivation to do that?
I guess it had a lot to do with finding a solid person in my corner who helped me mm-hmm. achieve some of my goals, which is my buddy Paul. Shout out to Paul. He was one of my day one drivers once I got started. So once I bought my first truck, I was only a one truck operation for a short period of time, maybe like 5 months. Really? So after 5 months, I was now considered a fleet owner. Yeah. So I had 2 trucks. And, just by us working together and him being in my corner, as well as being supportive when it came to and really just wanting to help the company when it come to hiring drivers and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think that definitely played a big part in it for sure, because a lot of my decisions and things like that wasn't just based on me. I had him in my corner to make a phone call. Hey, what you think about this? What do you think about if I did that? What you thinking about if I did this? So I definitely feel as though that played a major part, into me living out my dreams. And of course, everything wasn't easy. Hit major bumps in the road and things like that. Oh, yeah. A lot of it due to just not educating myself before I got into what I'm doing. I think that plays a major part, you know what I mean? Just minimizing on those L's, and turning those L's, into lessons at the end of the day, You know what I'm saying? Turning those losses into lessons, and that's what I felt like built me up to the point I'm at now.
That's what's up. You stayed down.
Oh yeah.
And kept the vision at mind the whole time, knowing that it was going to be a bump in the road.
Right.
That comes with chasing a dream, and also the fact that you stood out. Right.
Yep.
You know that you was alone within what you was doing at first, and you took a chance. You know what I'm saying? Taking chances, standing out, that comes with, really chasing your dreams, because anyone can, dream, but they're still walking around like every other person every single day.
Right.
I always say that you gotta, like with this, you know what I'm saying, with this thing, like I know some people be like, like what's going on? But you gotta jump off the porch.
Yep.
If you don't, then you never know.
You never know where you'll end up, for sure.
Yeah, but
absolutely,
like I said,
bro.
y'all stayed down till the vision came true, and shout out to your boy Paul, because I'm saying a foundation and team definitely comes out of it, and we're gonna get to that later.
Okay.
So this past week I started reading a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Have you ever read that before?
No, I haven't read that.
So it's been out for like 20 years or so, and I honestly didn't even really have an interest in reading until recently. I'm not even gonna lie to you, but this book has me so intrigued, right? So basically, long story short, Rich Dad Poor Dad, it kind of has like 6 rules that the rich and wealthy live by, and they try to pass it on to its readers. And the number one rule in the book out of the 6 rules is that the rich make their money work for them. The wealthy make their money work for them. And I say that to say, your business, you work with it. Of course, you're hands-on with it, but you're making it work for you, right? That's the whole reason you even jumped off the porch and did this. You're like, I'm not trying to, be the regular schmeggler and do whatever I want. You know what I'm saying? The book also talks about acquiring assets. So your asset is your business, your corporation.
Right.
You took that and you're making it work for you, right? So was that also going into it, the beginning, was that also something that you knew you wanted to do, whether it was with trucks, with anything else? You know what I'm saying? It seems like you just have that hustler spirit. So was that something that you already knew you wanted to get into, making your money work for you, building your asset to work for you?
Nah, to be honest, no. I think when I got into it, I really didn't have any intention on, becoming, a fleet owner, and just like what you said, to the point where, because obviously if you have if you own one truck, you're still having to do that work. Yes, at the end of the day, you are a boss, you know what I'm saying? But you're not at that point where you can sit at home and do just like what you said, make the money work for you. So in the beginning, I really didn't have plans on that. I think oftentimes a lot of people that get in the game, sometimes it's just one of those things where sometimes, it's just stuff just happens. And like I said, it just finding that right person, what I mean, that can help grow with you. I feel like sometimes that's where your business can just scale beyond what you thought it was going to be. Yeah. Because it really does take a team. Two people make a team.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It really does take a team. So it's like, once you have that team and you put those 2 minds together, you know what I'm saying, to come up with a plan, it's like you wouldn't even believe, how far it could really take you if you were just doing it by yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I have another quote for you. That this was from the book as well, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It says, acquire the type of assets you love because you will take better care of them and enjoy learning about them. So I say that to say, you mentioned a little earlier, you came, when you first started, when you was a 1 truck fleet, you came across a bump in the road that could have discouraged you.
Oh, yeah.
And if you, didn't have any type of interest or passion for what you were working with, you could have easily walked away from it. So I say that to say, I'm guessing that you definitely have, I could tell now, you definitely have a love and passion for what it is you do and what it is you work with, which is why it's blessed you. Like you said, at first you didn't, and your intentions at first wasn't for it to turn into, what it is. You know what I'm saying? You definitely wanted to always progress, but it just wasn't as clear. Right. But that came from you having a passion for what you're doing, you enjoying what you're doing. And, like I said, or like the quote said, have a passion and have love for your assets because you'll care for it more. I can tell you're out here caring for your trucks, you know what I'm saying, by your IG and whatnot. And that eventually, grew into something that you couldn't even see because you put that energy that you wanted to be involved with it. Right. So, like I said, you really like you for one, you're putting a lot of content out on your Instagram, which is great. You know what I mean? Because like me, I had no idea about anything about trucks. But you're putting so much stuff out there. Like your trucks are looking good. You know what I'm saying? Didn't you even like show in like 5 minutes how to change how to shift a truck?
Yeah.
I didn't even know all that went into it, yo. Like in like 30 seconds, break down like how that works, because that was very intriguing to me. I thought it was maybe like a eight shift type. How many gears are with the truck?
Well, they come in different speeds. Typically the most standard is a 10 speed. Damn. So most of the time, if a truck is manual, 9 times out of 10, it more than likely, especially if it's a company fleet vehicle, it'll be a 10 speed. Yeah, that's pretty much just standard. So it is pretty much just like kind of driving a car is similar. You know what I mean? Because once you get to the point where you really know what you're doing, the difference between shifting a truck and shifting a car, you don't even have to use the clutch. Yeah. Because in trucking, you do what's called floating, where you don't even touch the clutch. You're just listening to the sound of the engine, as well as timing it as you're ready to shift, taking your foot off the fuel, simply using the fuel to ease out of gear and go right into the next gear.
See what I'm saying? Like you on it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You could tell this is something that you really mess with. Right. That's what's up. All right, so let me ask you this. What goes into picking out a truck to purchase? And you know what I'm saying? And then, of course, break it down to, simpler terms for the novice, including myself. Like I said, what goes into, purchasing or picking out a truck to purchase? Matter of fact, I'm sorry, before we get there, I watched one of your IG Live videos, and what was interesting, you had you was doing like a Q&A with someone, and you mentioned that, a little quick tip out there for those who want to get into the same business, to not not fully buy trucks, correct?
Said not fully buy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not cash out.
Yeah. So before we get into what goes into picking out, break down that. You know what I'm saying, for those who may be interested in getting to the same business, or who may be in the same business and who are at the beginning stage. Okay. Of why that's important.
I feel like that's so important. And don't get me wrong, advice, is going to apply to most people, but at the same time, you do have those few people where, money's not an issue. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But for the average person that's strictly saving their money, you know what I mean? I never recommend cashing out on a truck, simply because this is one business where you're going to have a lot of expenses, and you don't want to be so fast to dump all of that reserve, you know what I mean, into the truck. When you factor in, you never know what can happen a week after owning the truck. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You want to rather hold into it, because keep in mind, we're talking about, the difference between financing, obviously, a semi-truck and a personal car is now you're financing an asset. This is something that's going to make you money. Yeah. So even if at the end of the day, by you financing, you're paying a little interest on it versus cashing out, at least it's still worth it at the end of the day, because this asset is making you money to pay for that interest. You know what I mean? So I always recommend to a lot of my followers is to never cash out on a truck unless money is not an option. Never cash out on a truck, because you simply can scale even faster if you don't cash out on a truck. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you have $50,000 to your name, right? And you go and you buy a $35,000 truck that you cash out on it. Well, now you got 15 grand left, right? Let's say the next week, the transmission or something like that goes out on the truck, and let's say you didn't purchase a warranty. Yeah, that might run you a little over $5,000, right? So now you kicked out a total of $40,000 before you even made a penny. You only got 10 grand left. Yeah, right. Versus taking that same 50,000 and purchasing 3 trucks, putting a down payment at $5,000 a piece. So we got a total investment out of pocket of $15,000. Still have 35 left in the bank. Right. Let's say the same thing happens on one of the trucks. Transmission goes up, costs you $5 grand. You still got $30,000 left over in the bank.
Or even if all 3 transmissions went out, you would still be set.
Right. And just keeping in mind, you can still pay that truck off sooner you know what I mean, than the term. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing how the business goes for the first year, and then if that's in your will to go ahead and, you know, to pay off those assets, so now you own them clear free, have the titles and everything like that.
Yeah.
So my advice is always to the people that reach out to me is never cash out on a truck, simply because you're going to need that revenue. You know, you're going to need that. You're going to need that reserve.
Yeah.
That's on hold for sure. Absolutely.
That makes perfect sense. All right, so let's get into what goes into actually picking out a truck to purchase.
A lot of that has to do with, you know, knowing what all you're going to need the truck for, you know, whether you're going to run it local, whether you're going to run it over the road. You know, typically as far as trucks, there's two types of trucks. You have day cabs and then you have sleepers. So that's one thing you want to determine, whether you want to buy a day cab or buy a sleeper. I always recommend sleepers. Yeah. Simply because if you're in the market for a used truck, whatever you're finding that day cab price at, you typically can find a sleeper around the same price. You know, granted, give or take. Yeah. But typically you can find a sleeper for, you know, even if it is a little bit more, not too much more of a price difference. A sleeper is going to give you or your driver more comfort. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Versus purchasing a day cab. When you factor in one thing about trucking, is often referred to as the hurry up and wait game, because you got to hurry up and get to the delivery or hurry up and get to the pickup just to sit and wait because there's other trucks ahead of you. How long do you typically wait? Typically, I mean, on average, when you're going to a spot, you can typically expect to be there from 1 to 2 hours. Okay. You know, if you go into a real good spot, you could be in and out in 30 minutes. Yeah. It all depends on, a lot of times, the size of the facility. If you're going to what I call a mom and pop spot, which means there's nobody on the door, small operation, they only have one door, you're in and out. But if you're going to, you know, let's say like we all shop at Giant Food, a lot of people don't know, you know, all the grocery stores have a big warehouse filled with trucks. So that you obviously can expect your wait time to be a little bit more because there are hundreds of trucks there. Right. So all of those things play into knowing what type of truck you want, as well as the last thing is just knowing the different engines that come in the truck. That's very important, because at the end of the day, the difference between trucking and starting, let's say, a car wash business, a lot of the fate of your company is determined by the reliability of the engine. See what I'm saying? Because one thing about getting in trucking, you know your work ethic, you know you're going to do the work. But one thing you're not always 100% certain on is the reliability of the truck. Yeah. When you think of any other business, typically, you know, your success is determined by your work ethic. And mainly only that. You put in the work, you'll see the results. Right. But when you purchase a truck, you know, work ethic for sure has a big part. But at the end of the day, if that truck breaks down on you, you know what I mean? That's your what can you do? So if you don't really take it serious and do your research when it comes to purchasing your first truck, it can really be the break or fail of your company. Wow. Didn't know all that went into it. But it definitely makes sense as far as, like you said, it's your workhorse. So you need to get, you know, something that can carry the load plus the comfortability. Right. So I take it, I can only imagine, you know, that it's very important that you're comfortable in your truck, because you mean you're driving, you know, distances and whatnot, you know, you see it all the time on 495 with trucks 2-3 in the morning they pulled over and then sleep. Right. So what's the furthest that you've drove personally? The furthest I've drove probably was between going from here all the way to Miami. That's about 1,000 miles. I think that was about the furthest I drove. Yeah, and you went straight there? Yeah, well, technically, legally, you can't go straight there, so I got there within about a day and a quarter. Okay. Yeah. See, I ain't even gonna lie to you. It's clear that there's money in the trucking business. Right. Only reason I could not do trucking, bro, I get so sleepy. Yeah. Like I like sitting down, like I can't. That's why I can't work at an office. I slept in, I want to say 90% of every class of every grade I've ever had. I'm just a natural sleepy person. But like you said, that goes into consideration of purchasing a truck is if it has
You know, if it's a sleep truck, if it has the sleep part at the top.
Absolutely.
So, so also what goes into it, which a lot of people get discouraged from trucking, is that, you know, it could be lonely on the roads.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So, but like you said, it's good to have a community of fellow truckers where y'all can, you know, kind of, you know, make sure that everyone's attentive, goofing around with each other, make sure everybody's good and whatnot. Correct?
Right. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And just, you know, really just, you know, it's so many different avenues that you can go in trucking. Mm-hmm. You know, like I always tell people, you're always going to have a job. As long as you take care of your license, take care of that CDL, you're always going to have a job in trucking. So you really got to find the best fit for you. You know, there's local, there's what you call OTR, that's over the road. So one thing about OTR, you can do all 48 states. And then you have what's called regional. Or regional, you know, you might operate within a 500-600 mile radius of, you know, the state that you reside in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a lot of different avenues. And then, of course, you have local, which is pretty much just a regular 9-to-5 job. That's what we've been able to fortunately build up to. When I first started, I did things like go to Miami, I went to Michigan, Indianapolis, all those different things. You know, typically just like any business, you're trying to find yourself. You know, you're building relationships, you know what I mean? But of course, after you've been in the game for a little while, you learn some things and things like that. You get to the point in trucking where you build lanes, you build customers that you work with on a regular basis. You know, you do a little research, you do a little studying to figure out, you know, what lanes can I run to maximize my revenue as well as not going too far away from home.
Oh, yeah.
There's one thing about trucking, you know, it can easily consume your life. You talk to a lot of older guys that's in trucking where they'll tell you all the time how the old lady left them, things like that, you know what I mean, because they're not home.
Yeah.
You know, one thing about how these companies will have it set up, you know, typically over the road companies, if you're not in that truck and your wheels aren't turning, you're not making money. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of companies will have it set where you're away from home sometimes for weeks at a time. Damn. Just to come home for a couple of days. Yeah. And you're right back out there on the road. Damn. It's kind of like the life of a rap star, just without the pay. You know what I'm saying? That's a good way to look at it because
or even I would say an MLB player because they have like I forgot. I think it's like just under 200 games. Yeah. They say baseball players are never home. That's why their checks are so big. Yeah. Because they're never home. Right. And that could, you know, like you said, that can be stressful towards your family that is back home. Oh, yeah. But y'all were blessed enough to, you say you're at a point now where you do the local deliveries, which is good. So your team is delivering local, right? That's great. So let's talk about the team for a little bit, right? Let's talk about the importance of a team, the importance of building a team, selecting a team. Another quote, I'm gonna throw a lot of quotes this episode. Another quote from the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is more important than an entrepreneur's money is an entrepreneur's team. So let me ask you, you kind of touched on in the beginning with how you started with Paul. Let me ask you, how important is your team to you and your business?
Oh, it's essential. You know, it's so important to the point where without that team, there is no company. You know what I mean? Because obviously once you get to the point where you scale up, you know, when you're a one-man show, okay, now you're just taking enough work to cover just you. But once you get to the point where you scale up, you know, you hire your first employee, you're now considered an employer. So it's really crucial because now I have about 3 full-time guys and 2 additional part-time guys. So a total of about 5 of us. You know, it's to the point now where it's like, you know, without them, there is no, you know, providing the need for my customers. You know what I'm saying? Because I have a fleet of 6 trucks. I can't drive all 6 trucks. Right. You know what I mean? I can only operate one. Well, where my customer base is, it doesn't allow me to just only operate that one truck. If I only operated just that one truck, I can kiss my other customers goodbye. Right. You know, so it really is essential, you know, as far as when you do have that team, you know, making sure that they're taken care of and everything that comes into it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And just to touch base on that, like you said, it helps expand. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
it's always, you know, more efficient to have two people talking to two different persons than just me talking to one, and then the next time try to go to that other one. But in the meantime, they were already talked to by someone else.
Right.
But yeah, just touch base. Also, you know, a team is just so important to getting to, securing, and ensuring the bag.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying, you could probably do that on your own, but you have such a greater probability of that getting done with a solid team, a solid foundation, which is what you have. And also the importance of, you know, your team recognizing and, you know, taking accountability towards playing, you know, their different roles, you know,
right.
doing their different positions, knowing their position, know where they stand at. And, you know, an example of that is, like you said, you know, yeah, you have full-time and part-time drivers, right? They know, you know, part-time, you know, they know the importance. They're just as important as a full-time because they're getting, you know, they're getting it done, what needs to be done, right? It just may not be as many hours, but, and, you know, as far as your role is, you know what I'm saying, making sure everybody's straight. You know what I mean? Before we even started this, like, you was like, you was on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you was doing dispatch or whatnot. You was seeing where everybody was at, and that's your role. Right. That's your position. That's why you have to take, you know what I'm saying, you have to take accountability of it, which goes towards the team. With this podcast thing, like I said, my producer and engineer, Sauce Boy, I shout him out every episode because I literally would not be able to do this without him. Right. And the second part of that is my co-host, my guest. I can't sit up here and talk by myself. You know what I'm saying? Some podcasters can, and it turns out decent, but most people that try to, it does not turn out good. That is difficult to do. Right. But, and like I said, with Sauce Boy, I mean, his role, he knows his role. He hasn't stepped foot on camera once. He's not a camera person at all. He's quite shy. Yeah. But he knows he's efficient in making sure that this thing is edited, audio and video wise, make sure that the quality is good for everything, and he's still in high school. Right. So as he's building, I'm building as well, and we know, you know what I'm saying, once we reach a certain peak, it's a wrap. Right. You, with your team, y'all started off with just a one fleet truck, but y'all kept building, y'all kept getting better, and y'all know eventually this thing was going to be a wrap. And we can say it's a wrap now, but we always progressing. We always reaching for the top no matter how high we get. Right. And that's exactly what you and your team is doing.
Right. It's funny you say that too, because so when you compare, you know, that person in the trucking world, you know, that's looked at as the mechanic, because, you know, they're behind the scenes, you know, they're the ones that make sure that those trucks are running. When they break down, they're the ones that's fixing them. They don't show up at the deliveries. They don't talk to any of my customers. My customers don't know who they are. But at the end of the day, they are essential. They are so important to me running my operation, to the point where if they don't show up, there is no operation. You know what I mean? If they don't, you know, do what they say that they're gonna do, and making sure that they fix this, they fix that, they look over this needs to be fixed on the truck. I got a truck right now that's been a project truck that I'm about to put on the road, but still getting a little more work done to it. So it's like, you know, without them, just like how you said, there is no show. You know, there is no trucking company. You know, without a mechanic, you can't go on and you know, do anything, because either your truck isn't gonna crank or if it does crank, it's not safe to drive. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So shout out to everybody behind the scenes playing a role, because, I mean, more cases than not, y'all are actually more important than, you know, someone who may be on the scene. So everybody that's grinding behind the scene, man, keep doing your thing and shit. Usually y'all be getting the bigger bucks anyway, so shout out. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to them. And also, speaking of that, you know, behind the scenes and working on trucks, shout out to Charge Custom. Shout out to my boy Scrap, because I see he done put a few things.
Oh, yeah. So shout out to Scrap for
nice.
sure. Oh, yeah.
So you driving with some nice quality sound.
Yeah, he put some beat in my truck.
Yeah. Shout out to my boy.
He did also my dash cams, because that was something that I wanted to have, you know, going down the road. You know, you always want to kind of stay prepared before you got to get prepared. So I decided, I said, you know what, man, let me go ahead and get some videography in the trucks as they're going down the road, you know, just so that we can protect ourselves, protect the brand.
Oh yeah.
So he came out and installed them in all of my trucks, as well as put a sound system in it in my truck as well.
And this is trucks that we talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So let me go ahead and plug my boy right quick. I know he ain't on here. Charge Customs, man. Charged Up Customs on IG. Go ahead and get at him. He usually works on automobiles, cars, but as you can see, he's doing it on tractor trailers as well. I mean, we're talking cameras, we're talking audio, we're talking sound systems, we're talking automatic startups, we're talking dash cams, everything you need with your automobile. I'm just telling y'all to go to his IG and see for yourself. Shout out to my boy Charged Up Customs. All right, so we're going to get back to it, but we're going to put a pause into the truck talk just for now, right? So you are Interstate Hustler. This episode is called Interstate Hustling.
Oh yeah.
I know you're a hustler. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Anyone can tell that you're a hustler right now. Stevie in his prime could tell that you're a hustler. You know what I'm saying? So what I want to do is, we're talking about hustling, and music is such an important aspect of life. I always say, how many wonders of the world is there? 7 or 8? 7?
Yeah.
8?
I'm not sure.
Let's say 7. I say women in music are the 8th and 9th wonders of the world. All right. Yeah. So I want to ask you this.
Okay.
Let's bring hustling to music.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get a top 5 DOA, dead or alive. Top 5 DOA hustle rappers. Mm-hmm. And when I say this, not just rappers who talk about selling drugs and they made money, or I did this and I made money. I'm talking about rappers who, if they did say that, they may talk about the other side. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How they getting, you know what I mean, corporate money, how they making their assets work for them. You know what I'm saying? How they talking about, you know, just really, really wealth. Not just $100 bills. They talking about wealth.
Right.
Talking about rappers that motivate you to get on your hustle tip. Whether it's actually hustling for money, or even if it's, you know what I'm saying, just moving through life with that hustle mentality.
Right.
Let's get a top 5 DOA. Let's come up with the list together.
Okay.
Top 5 DOA hustle rappers. And before we get popping, number 1 has to be Hove. Jay.
Oh yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah.
Because like I said, he talked both sides. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He talked about.
But Jay, from my knowledge, Jay isn't on the social media platform.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
You know what I mean? But everyone knows what he does.
Yeah.
I would have to say, you know, at least somebody that's definitely in the field as far as on a social media platform, Master P.
Oh,
all the way.
Oh, yeah. He
Get you some product. That's like one thing he always, almost every video he does, he says, you want to be successful?
I like that
Get
one.
you some product.
I like that one. See, I wasn't even thinking that far ahead. Master P, absolutely, because he was the first one to do the whole, you know what I'm saying, independent thing, and he sparked it off for all the rappers. And he, like you said, he's always involved in, you know what I'm saying, some type of marketing for something or investment with something. Okay, boom. So shoot, it don't even matter who's number 1 and 2, but top 2 is Master P and J.
Oh yeah.
I like that. All right, let's get these last 3 in.
I would say, I mean, it's so hard because a lot of people, you know, don't give that game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far as who you got?
Jeezy.
Jeezy. Oh yeah. Yeah, he up there.
I think Jeezy has to be in that top 5. Because he may not be, they say Tip T.I. is the godfather of trap music. Mm-hmm. But I mean, man, Jeezy just, and you don't even have to sell bricks to feel that passion from Jeezy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just the overall, like we talked about, the overall hustle mentality, man. Jeezy's my 3rd favorite rapper of all time because of that hustle mentality. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can feel it. I mean, he said the world is yours and everything in it. It's out there. Get on your grind and get it. The sky is the limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Thug Motivation 101. Like he is motivating the hustlers, man. Always has been. So I think Jeezy. Let's give Jeezy that number 3. Who else you got in mind?
I'm thinking of one cat. I can't think of his name, from Pretty Ricky. You know what I'm talking about? Light skinned guy.
I don't, but that's an unorthodox selection. So go ahead and elaborate why you think him.
Because he completely got out of the music scene damn near. I know they just went on a tour like last year or something like that.
Who was in?
I think he got dreads now. I'm not sure forget his name. I know he was part of he was definitely one of the members of Pretty Ricky. If on social media now, he's just straight entrepreneur. No music. He transitioned almost completely.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
all right, so let's throw him in there at 4. And I can't remember his name. I mean, I can't. I remember there was one that kind of like went off and did his own thing. But as far as light skin do a dress, I can't remember who you're talking about. But
Yeah.
you said he's doing his own thing. So okay, let me match someone with that.
Okay.
Who still did music and was known for their music, but like shoot, if you ask him, he probably would say that music wasn't his, his greatest asset. Nip.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about
Yeah,
Nip.
absolutely.
Yeah, let's throw
R.I.P.
The late and great. Let's throw Nip in there. I mean, the whole Victory Lap was just game on its own.
Yeah, you got a good album when you can just let the thing play, man.
Mm-hmm.
You don't got to skip not one song. That's rare.
Not one.
Most time when you look at something, it's like, let me just scroll down. I just want to hear just this one record.
Yeah.
But when you talk about an album so great like his, you can let the whole thing just play.
And there's so much motivation, inspiration, and game in it. And here's how I kind of dissect a hustle rapper or a motivational rapper, is if you can listen to it for motivation and life, going out and getting a bag and working out to it.
Right.
Like if you think about it, the greatest songs, you may have songs that you can work out to, hype songs, and that's all it is. It's a hype song. You may have songs that kind of motivate you. You know what I'm saying? It's cool, and that's all it is. But if it's a song that you can work out to, it motivates you on the physical aspect and the mental and spiritual aspect of going and getting it, then it's a great album. Victory Lap by Nip and Blueprint by Jay-Z are two of my favorite albums of all time to listen to and work out to. That's how both of them are great.
Oh yeah.
You have any? So we have so boom, that's 5, correct?
Yeah.
Do you have any honorable mentions you think will be able to get selected?
Honorable mentions.
I like Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ross is dope. Yeah.
Ross is definitely involved with.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number, but I know he on a whole bunch of them Wingstop.
Oh yeah, the Wingstop. Oh yeah, see what I'm saying? And recently he just got involved with the medical field. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what it is, but he had like $1 million partnership with some type of medical corporation. So he's Ross, and he's the boss.
I like Slim Thug too.
Slim Thug.
Yeah, Slim Thug. Yeah, for
Break
sure.
that one down.
Just because a lot of stuff I see him do, like they do a lot of stuff on social media as well, giving homes away. You know what I mean? He gives away, if I'm not mistaken, like 1 home a year. You know what I mean? Because he owns a construction company called Boss Like Construction. So I think that's like really dope as well. Giving away somebody a brand new refurbished home. He doesn't just buy the home and give them the keys. They go in and gut everything out. You know what I mean? Redo it all up nice, and then they give it away.
Okay, that's what's up. See, I've seen him a few times on IG, like pop up on certain feeds, but I gotta follow him. I didn't know he was doing it big like that.
Yeah.
Okay, shout out to Slim Thugger. All right, so cool. We got the top 5 DOA out the way. Now I want to do something. I want to do this right for all the listeners and viewers out there. We are at a point of the show called the Day by Day Talk for your day by day walk in life. Just some words that can give you motivation, inspirate you on something, educate you with something. Just words for the day by day walk in life that can be helpful. And I was thinking, I don't want these words to come from me, right? I want them to start coming from the guests. So Brock, let me ask you this. What would you say to the listener or viewer out there who started their own business or company, no matter what it is, right? And they're at the part of their journey where they've hit a bump in the road and they're discouraged. They're hesitant on, picking up their lunchbox and keeping it going back. They're thinking about, calling it quits or whatever it may be. They don't see the finish line, right? They just see that they're in a bump in the road and, they're really down at the moment. And key, I said at the moment. What would you say to them?
I think one of the things I would say, I did a video on my Instagram one time just talking about how sometimes in life, because one thing about it, sure, anybody, one thing that's common to go around is people always say, hey, never give up. Yeah. Never give up, right? Never get up. But the truth be told, if we talk about the real, uncut truth of being an entrepreneur, everybody ain't gonna make it. Everybody might not make it at least the first time. So one of my videos was talking about was it's okay sometimes to pull the plug on an idea and start over. Or sometimes, you gotta do what's best for your situation, because when you factor in so many people that start companies and they sacrifice this, they sacrifice that, somebody out there, plenty of people out there right now, bills that have just piled up because they've tried to chase that entrepreneur journey. Well, I'm here to tell you it's okay sometimes to pull the plug in an idea. Go back to that 9 to 5 or work a few more hours at that 9 to 5. Not forgetting about your idea of you starting your own brand, just putting it on ice for a little bit so that at the end of the day you can maintain, your livelihood of taking care of you and or your family. You know what I'm saying? Because, every idea isn't always gonna go big necessarily right then and there. You talk to hear about so many entrepreneurs where they failed the first time.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
So many.
They failed the first time. Like, by the grace of God, I personally didn't go through that, you know what I mean? But so many people, go through that. I was damn sure close. You know what I mean? Because unless safe to say, unless you come from money, you know what I mean, and the red carpet is just rolled out there to you, if you're just an average, American in the United States, your family isn't poor, they're middle class. You know what I'm saying? You have lived a good life, you know what I mean? So talking to some of those people, as well as, others as well, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just okay to pull the plug in an idea, revamp an idea, go back to the drawing board. You know what I'm saying? Go back to the drawing board. Okay, I started this idea, it's not going as well as I need it to go. You know what I mean? Before I keep drowning myself in more debt, charging my credit cards up, borrowing money from family, I see this idea isn't working for the time being. Let me go back and work this job or do what I can, get that guaranteed money, because nothing is wrong, of course, with getting that guaranteed money. There's a saying that goes, the 9 to 5 pays the bills, and what is it, the 6 to 11, during those hours is the hours that you use to build your own brand. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? So that one day, you can take off from there and possibly do your own thing. And as well as that, man, like, every idea isn't meant to be, $1 million idea. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people got to remember, having a side hustle, and let's say that side hustle is generating you an extra $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 more a month. Sure, that may not be enough to live off on, but when you factor in that being a side hustle, especially like we talked about, as far as a hustle that can be something that you don't have to perform manual labor with, something that's just going to bring you in residual income, letting your money, you know what I mean? That alone could cover your mortgage. That alone, you know what I mean, could put your kids through college, put your kids through school, whatever it is that you're going through. So that's my advice on that. So many millionaires, as well as people that's successful, have multiple streams of income. You know what I'm saying? Nobody that's truly successful just has their hands tied in one thing. That's something else to remember as well. There's a guy on Instagram called the 9 to 5 Millionaire. He's in real estate. Now, I don't think he's working a 9 to 5 anymore, but obviously at a point in his life, he was working, I believe, in the police force as working a 9 to 5 and was a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? So that's my advice. You know what I'm saying? Sure, it can just be so easy to say, never give up, don't give up, keep chasing that dream, not realizing by you continuing to chase that dream, which is good, but you're just in some cases you can just be digging yourself more in the hole. Sometimes you got to come to the realization of, okay, this just isn't working. Does this mean that I need to give up on what I'm doing forever? No. Does this mean I just need to go back to the drawing board, reevaluate some things so that at the end of the day I don't lose everything that I've worked so hard for, and then later down the line come back to the table and pick up from where I left off? Yes.
I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. Have nothing to add to it. That was perfect. All right, shoot, man. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah.
I'm almost certain someone's going to take that and run with it.
For sure.
So before we even get out of here, let's talk about something that you did a couple months ago, the Hustlers Ball.
Yeah.
I'm calling it. Was it called the Hustlers Ball?
Interstate Hustlers Ball.
Interstate Hustlers Ball.
The first annual Interstate Hustlers Ball.
Man, and it was in December, correct?
Yep.
Man, that thing looked like a great turnout. I was working at the time. I couldn't come through, but
gotcha.
Man, that thing, like you holding your own, you know what I'm saying? Hustlers Ball, it was a great turnout. It looked like y'all do it big, man.
Yeah.
How excuse me. Sounded like I'm a FUD. How did that go for you?
Oh, it went great. It was a great turnout, right? That was my first time like hosting an event. You know, like I've never hosted an event before, and everybody said I did real good. I felt like I did real good.
Yeah,
you know, I wanted to make
clips, it looked like it.
Yeah, because it's like, and I actually got that idea from some of the mentors I look up to, like Slim Thug. His brand is Boss Life. They have the Boss Life Ball. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I feel like it's good to have. It's like when you have a circle of, you know, people where y'all are all in the same field, or even not even all in the same field. You know what I mean? Just something where it's like, you know, it's 365 days in a year, you know, on one day, just one day where we can bring everyone in our circle and the next person's circle all in one room and just celebrate life. You know what I'm saying? Celebrate, you know, the things that us truck drivers do, as well as even the people that aren't truck drivers. Hey, y'all come out too. Y'all celebrate with us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Celebrate, you know, us truckers. Celebrate some of your accomplishments, because as we know, man, we only live once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nothing like that night was great. You know, I drove a Lamborghini for the first time.
I was ready to say, man, y'all was looking good, man. Y'all was shining, you know what I'm saying? Y'all was pulling up in some nice whips.
Yeah, it was nice.
So you driving a Lambo?
Yeah, I drove the Lambo for the first time.
I know that joint was roaring.
That's an amazing car. That's
really?
all I could say, man. That's whew. You talk about a car. I see when you see, you know, you look on Instagram and you see so many of them wrecked. You know what I mean? Or sometimes it's really not that hard to do if you know what I mean. Just don't think while you're driving it. Oh, let me slow this thing down.
Yeah.
You know, obviously nothing really is touching that car.
Yeah, and you've always been on top of your cars. Listen, I remember the first time I met you. I don't know if you remember this. This was in high school. I transferred to Meade, and I think it was through Chico. He was like, "Yo, we gonna ride with my boy to school." I'm like, "All right, bet."
Oh shoot! Shout out to Chico.
Yeah, right.
Time.
So we you picked us up or whatever. We met at your crib, something like that. And I'm like, damn, this is a nice whip. Like, this is a nice coat. What did you have back then in high school?
Bro, that had to have been my Buick.
Yeah, it was a Buick.
Yeah, but it was just, you know, I kept it clean. It was nice.
You kept it clean, bro.
The cream inside with the leather. Bro, they don't even make leather like that nowadays. That car is a 1995. The way that leather felt, you know what I'm saying? Like that.
I volunteered to sit in the back seat because it was it was so cozy back there. It was like sitting in a movie theater back there. Like it was chill. I'm like, he be on his car stuff. Okay, that's what's up.
Oh yeah.
Damn, that's what's up. Your whole team pulled up in some nice looking whips in the ball.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we had the Lambo, we had the C8, we had the I8, we had the Bentley truck, the Porsche, Panamera, new one. Man, we
y'all did listen.
We had it all. The Bentley, Flying Spur, we had it all out there.
Y'all hear him, man. They did it big for the Interstate Hustlers Ball.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Next year, I know it's going to be a movie times too. And this was just the first year that y'all got.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we're going to do 2 events a year. So we're going to do one in the summertime. That's called the Interstate Hustlers Cookout. So maybe I'll catch you at that one. And then at the end of the year, so you got the Interstate Hustlers Cookout. I started that one. Well, this year we're going to have our, you know, hopefully after COVID and everything, you know what I mean, we'll be able to do the event where I decided to do that one because it's like, hey, the ball is obviously more formal. Yeah. You know, you got to find a babysitter for the kids, things like that. The cookout is like, hey, it don't matter. Bring little John, little Neek, neat cousin.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have something for the kids.
Yeah.
Y'all, everybody come out. It'll be / like a truck show. Have a few trucks out there for the kids to, take some pictures and things like that.
That's what it's about, man. Doing it big, man. Listen, man, that's all the time we got for now. But listen, we could have kept going for hours. I truly appreciate you pulling up, man.
No problem.
Giving the listeners knowledge, you know what I'm saying, and me as well. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and y'all clearly see why. My boy B. Phillips is doing it, right? So listen, if you watching on YouTube or listening on your respective podcast platform, make sure that you hit subscribe, right? And we're all over the place. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and it's like 6 or 7 different ones that I never heard of, but we on there. So do your Googles. Until next time, everybody, I'd like to shout out to my boy Brock for pulling up. Good looks on that, man.
No problem, bro.
Truly
appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming through. Until next time, everybody, y'all make sure y'all keep up to date on these new episodes that's coming out. Until in the meantime, make sure that y'all stay safe, stay blessed, and stay sane out here. All right? Peace. Yes, sir, Ski.